I watched it spread from where my face bounced off the kitchen counter, watched Kara's mouth twist into something that might have been a smile if you squinted. "Learn to share," she'd said, her voice honey-sweet for the neighbors. "You'll die soon anyway." Evan's hand was still locked on my arm, fingers digging in like he was checking beef at auction. My oldest boy, 32 years old, and he'd just broken his father's nose over apartment keys and money he thought he was owed. The mug I'd used every morning for 15 years lay in 3 pieces by the sink. I counted to 9 like Jess taught me. On 9, sirens started up down on Mill Street, thin and distant. I hadn't called them. Yet. "Dad." Evan's voice cracked. He let go, stepped back. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. The walls pressing in like they do in cheap walk-ups with thin insulation and thinner dignity. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." I touched my nose, felt the break, set it by feel. Not my first. Won't be my last. "Get out." Kara's eyes narrowed. She was still holding her phone, probably already composing the Instagram story about how I'd fallen. Clumsy old man, so sad. "We're not done," she said. "We're done when I say we're done." I grabbed a dish towel, pressed it to my face. "And I say you've got 10 seconds before I make that call myself." They left. Evan looked back once, something flickering across his face that might have been regret, if I believed in fairy tales anymore. The door slammed. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited for my hands to stop shaking. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up 6 months, to when I still had the ranch and the world made a kind of sense. The morning smelled like wet earth and alfalfa, and the air still held its spring chill, even when the sun burned bright. I'd wake up before the rooster, like I always had, make my coffee in that same chipped mug, and stand on the back porch to watch the pastures come awake. That view, 52 acres of rolling grass, the barn like a red stamp against the green, used to feel like a promise I'd kept. The ranch had been in the family 3 generations. My grandfather broke the land, my father held it together, and I tried, some years better than others, but I always figured one of the boys would pick it up when I was gone. A legacy passed hand to hand, callus to callus, the way land should move. Evan once said he loved the ranch. He was 10, still small enough to ride in the old feed wagon beside me. He'd point at every hawk, every jackrabbit like he'd never seen one before. "This'll be mine one day, right, Dad?" he asked. I'd ruffled his hair, said something like, "If you want it, land doesn't belong to people. People belong to land." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did then, but people change, or maybe they just settle into who they always were. Jess was the middle child, the peacemaker. She left for college and never came back, but she called. She remembered birthdays. She mailed me books with sticky notes in the margins, like we still lived in the same house. She was the one who taught me the counting trick, back when her brothers started circling each other like feral dogs, and I started losing sleep. And then there was Robbie, the youngest. He had the ranch in his bones long after Evan started talking city lights and quick money. Robbie could mend fence, birth a breech calf, and cook a full breakfast with one hand still wrapped in vet tape. He said he'd take the land, raise kids on it. He meant it too, right up until the night the drunk driver hit him outside of Grady's bar and grill, and the sheriff stood on my porch, holding his hat instead of wearing it. After Robbie died, the ranch quieted. Not just in the way grief hushes a house, but like the place itself went still, waiting to see what I'd do next. I worked harder because that's what men like me do. I kept the herd, leased some pasture, made repairs, paid the bank on time even when the price of feed climbed and the price of beef fell. And for a while, that was enough to keep the ghosts at the edges of the property line. Evan didn't come to the funeral. Said flights were expensive. Said Kara had the flu. Said he'd light a candle. I told him not to bother. The first sign of real trouble didn't come from Evan. It came from the bank, in the form of a man in a crisp shirt and city shoes, the kind that sink in dirt because their owners never walk on anything softer than sidewalk. His name was Brewster, and he introduced himself with a handshake that didn't know work. "Mr. Callahan," he said, which was how I knew he'd never met a man who owned a cattle brand. Ranchers are first-name people, even when they don't like you. "Just routine. Market's shifting. We're reviewing certain loans." The word reviewing does a lot of work in a sentence like that. He meant the loan I took when Robbie died, when I thought grief could be mortgaged like tractor parts. I remember I stood there in my mud-caked boots, the smell of silage on my clothes, and this man was talking about compound interest like it was weather. I told him I'd make the payments. He told me the rate was changing. Then he left in his polished car, and I stood there looking at the dust he stirred up, thinking about how many steaks it would take to match that interest hike. The math wasn't good. When I called Evan to explain, he didn't answer. When he finally did, 3 days later, he talked fast and loud, like a man selling himself a story. "Dad, you should have sold that place years ago. Land's worth more as parcels. You could retire, move closer to me and Kara. We'd help you." He said help like a man offering a chair to someone he already watched fall. "I'm not selling," I said. "Not while I'm breathing." "Then you'll lose it." Maybe he was right, but losing something to time is different than handing it over to people who don't know what dirt smells like after rain. 2 months later, Jess came home for a weekend, the way she always did when she felt me slipping. She walked the pastures with me, her hair in a braid like her mother used to wear, her boots still fitting as if she'd never left. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "You could hire help, sell some of the herd. Scale back." "I scale back, I lose the place faster." "You keep going like this, you lose yourself faster." She always had a way of saying things that stayed in the air, echoing after she left. And she always left, because she had a life that didn't revolve around cattle prices and water rights. But that weekend, we sat on the porch and watched one of the barn cats hunt grasshoppers, and for a little while, I believed the ranch still had a future. That maybe it didn't all end with me. Then the fire came. Not a wildfire, the kind that eats counties, but the small, mean kind that starts when a barn outlet shorts out and no one's around to smell the smoke. I didn't lose the whole building, but I lost enough: tack, feed, a winter's worth of hay. Insurance covered maybe a third. The rest came out of pockets that already had holes. The bank saw the damage report. Brewster came back, tie still perfect, smile still thin. "Sometimes," he said, "we have to let go of the past to secure the future." I wanted to ask him what he'd ever held worth bleeding for, but I signed the papers instead. Not to sell, not yet, just to explore options. Words that taste like rust. That's when Evan reappeared. Suddenly he had time to visit. Suddenly he cared, except he didn't come alone. He brought Kara, all perfume and angles, her shoes worth more than my monthly feed bill. She walked the property like it was a listing she might flip. Evan kept saying "we" when he talked about decisions. We could divide the land, we could sell the herd, we could cash out. Funny how "we" always meant him. And the night everything changed, the night of the blood on the kitchen tile. It didn't start with a fight. It started with a question. "How much do you think the ranch would have sold for 10 years ago?" Evan asked, voice casual, like he wasn't prying open old wounds. "Doesn't matter," I said. "Sure it does. You could have retired then. Set yourself up. Instead you're..." "What? Still playing cowboy?" I didn't answer. Kara's laugh came sharp like a thrown stone. "You know what your problem is," she said. "You think stubborn is the same thing as strong. It's not. It's just old." Maybe she was right. Maybe strength left a man one joint at a time. But I still had enough to stand, to tell them both to get their hands off my life. That's when Evan grabbed me. That's when the mug broke. That's when I learned blood dries darker on tile than on dirt. And that's when I realized the ranch wasn't the only thing I was losing. I was losing the boy I once lifted onto my shoulders to see over the corral fence. And maybe I'd already lost him long before. After they left that night, I sat at the kitchen table, towel pressed to my face, and I thought about calling Jess. But I didn't want her to hear the shake in my voice. I didn't want her to think the man who taught her to swing a hammer couldn't stand up in his own kitchen. Instead, I thought about the ranch, about the land waking up without me, about the cattle moved off to someone else's pasture, about papers signed in rooms I'd never see. And then I thought about something else, the way Evan looked, just for a second, before he walked out, like a boy again, like someone who didn't know how to undo what he'd already done. Maybe there was a way back, maybe there wasn't, but if there was, it wouldn't be found in that kitchen, bleeding into old linoleum. So I made a decision. I'd sell the herd myself before the bank forced me. I'd clear what debt I could. And the land, what was left of it, I'd put in Jess's name. She could keep it, sell it, burn it, whatever. But it wouldn't go to a man who thought legacy was just a number with zeros behind it. I stood, rinsed the towel, looked at the ruined mug on the floor. Then I got the broom. Because some things you clean up, and some things you don't. And now you know how we got from a ranch at sunrise to a kitchen at midnight. The rest, the court papers, the phone calls, the last conversation I ever had with Brewster, that comes next. But first, let me tell you about the day I realized a man can lose everything except the part of him that refuses to break. That part, that's where the story really begins. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? They say drought doesn't discriminate, but that's a lie rich people tell. The drought hit us like a slow-motion train wreck, one dry month bleeding into another until the creek bed showed stones that hadn't seen sun in 40 years. Cattle prices dropped. Feed prices climbed. The math stopped working somewhere around February. I'd run that ranch for 33 years, bought it with money I'd saved working oil rigs in my 20s, built it up board by board. Evan had learned to ride there. Jess had raised her first calf there, bottle feeding it when the mother rejected it. The place had bones, but bones don't pay bills. Mason was the one who found me sitting on the porch at 2 a.m., staring at foreclosure notices. He'd been my foreman for 12 years, right up until the grain silo accident in 19 that left him with a limp and scars that made strangers look away. He'd pulled 3 men out of that silo before the walls gave. The town never forgot. "You gonna sell?" he asked, settling into the rocker beside me. "Don't see another way." He was quiet for a long time. Mason knew about quiet. "Your kids know." Evan knows the numbers. Jess knows I'm tired. I folded the notice, creased it sharp. Neither of them knows I'm setting up something different with the proceeds. Different how? Community Land Trust. Set it up 3 months ago with Frank Delaney's help. Frank was the lawyer who'd handled my will, back when I thought I had something to leave. Bulk of the proceeds go there. I keep a life annuity. The kids get maintenance payments, but only if they don't try to coerce or assault me for it. Clause is ironclad. Mason whistled low. Evan's not going to like that. Evan thinks I'm sitting on $200,000 I owe him for being born. I looked at Mason in the dark. I'm sitting on a monthly check and a lease on a second-floor walk-up by the feed mill. Big difference. When you planning to tell him? When he asks instead of demands. That conversation was 6 months ago. Last week I got a text thread screenshot from a number I didn't recognize. Kara to Evan. Get the deed. He's soft. Soft men don't learn to set broken noses by feel. The gala barn smelled like money, trying too hard. String lights wrapped every beam. The bar cost more than my monthly rent. And Kara's dress probably cost what I used to spend on a breeding bull. The wedding was supposed to be a fresh start. Family coming together. all that Hallmark garbage. I should have known better. I was standing by the gift table when Tara, the mother of the bride, materialized beside me. She had that brittle smile HOA board members perfect, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Lovely ceremony," she said, not looking at me. "Though I hear you downsized recently. From a ranch to an apartment." "That's right. Must be difficult, all that space to just cramped quarters." Her smile sharpened, "But I suppose you're used to making do." Before I could answer, Ryan, the best man, appeared with his phone out. He was always filming, always posting. Family First was probably already queued up. "Quick photo?" he asked, not really asking. The speeches started. Evan stood up, all polished edges and borrowed confidence. He talked about legacy and family and building futures. Didn't mention the ranch. Didn't mention the drought. Didn't mention that I'd worked 16-hour days to give him a childhood that didn't taste like fear. Then Kara stood up. She'd had 3 glasses of champagne, maybe 4. Her voice carried that bright, dangerous edge. "I want to thank everyone for coming," she said, smiling wide. "And I have a special request for my new father-in-law." The room went quiet in that way rooms do when they smell blood. "I'd love the keys to his apartment," Kara said, still smiling. "For emergencies. You know, in case something happens. He's getting older after all, and it would give us all peace of mind." 100 faces turned toward me. The reasonable request. The dutiful daughter-in-law. The responsible thing. "No," I said. Her smile froze. "I'm sorry." I said no. I kept my voice level, conversational. "Those are my keys to my home. You're not getting them." "But, no." The slap came fast, sharp across my face. The crack echoed off the barn beams. Someone gasped. Ryan's phone stayed up, recording. I walked outside, pulled out my phone, made one call. "Mason, I need you at the gala barn, now." 15 minutes later, a truck pulled up. Mason got out slow, favoring his left side like always. He was broad as a barn door, grey hair cut military short, wearing the same canvas jacket he'd worn the day of the silo. When he walked into that barn, the music stopped. The older folk started crying first. Mary Henderson, who'd lost her husband in that silo. Tom Parks, who Mason had pulled out by his belt while grain poured like water. They remembered. The room remembered. Mason walked to where I stood, put one hand on my shoulder. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Evan was walking toward us, fists flexing, face red. The band had stopped mid-song. Every eye in the place was locked on us. "Dad," Evan said, voice tight, "we need to talk." Then talk. Not here, outside. Love is patient. The open bar is not. We stood in the gravel parking lot, moths battering the lights overhead. Evan's jaw was working, that muscle jumping the way it did when he was about to lose it. Ryan followed us out, phone still up. Tara lingered by the door, smoothing her dress, smoothing the situation. "You embarrassed us," Evan said. "She slapped me." "You refused a reasonable request. My keys, my home, not reasonable." I kept my voice flat, drained of everything but facts. "You want to talk about embarrassment? Let's talk about how your wife just assaulted me in front of 100 witnesses." She was upset. "So was I when you broke my nose last week. Didn't make it right." Evan's face went pale. Ryan's phone dipped. Just a fraction. Even he knew that one was crossing a line. "That was an accident," Evan said. "Was it?" Mason shifted beside me, not threatening, just present. The way mountains are present. Lydia, the venue manager, had appeared in the doorway behind Tara, clipboard in hand, watching everything with the careful eyes of someone who'd seen too many wedding disasters. "What do you want?" Evan asked, voice dropping to something that might have been pleading if I squinted. "I want you to stop acting like I owe you something for existing. I want Kara to keep her hands to herself. I want to live the rest of my life without my own blood treating me like an ATM that's taking too long to die." The words landed hard. Evan rocked back like I'd hit him. "The ranch money," he started, "isn't yours. Never was. Never will be. But you want to sue me. Sue me. You want to petition for elder abuse. Go ahead. But those keys stay in my pocket, and you stay out of my home." Mason pulled something from his jacket, pressed it into my hand. A key tag, orange plastic, numbers stamped in black, 217. Evan saw it, frowned. "What's that?" "None of your business," I said. "A man who lives small needs somewhere to keep the big things." I didn't look back until we reached Mason's truck. The gravel crunched under our boots, moths still orbiting the floodlights, like they couldn't imagine a world beyond the beams. The music inside the venue had started up again, someone's idea of a romantic slow song. But it sounded muffled, distant, like an echo from a life I was no longer invited to. Mason didn't speak right away. He never did, not until he had something worth saying. He just held the door open for me, waited until I climbed in, then walked around and settled behind the wheel. His silence wasn't judgment. It was permission, to breathe, to shake, to feel something other than heat in my chest. We pulled onto the road before he finally said, "You sure you don't want me to go back there and handle something?" I snorted. "I think enough handling's been done for one night." He gave a short nod, eyes on the dark highway. "You held your ground." "Had to. If I bend now, I'll spend whatever time I've got left crawling." "You won't," he said. And he meant it. Mason wasn't the type to offer comfort for comfort's sake. If he said it, he'd measured it first. We drove in quiet, the kind that settles on two men who've run out of lies they tell themselves. The key tag sat in my palm, warm from my grip. Room 217. Not a hotel, not exactly. More like a place for people not built for nursing homes, but no longer welcome in their own houses. A compromise between freedom and surrender. "You sure about staying there?" Mason asked after a while. "Not sure about anything," I said. "But it's the kind of place where nobody can unlock my door without a warrant or a broken shoulder. That counts for something." He grunted, which from him meant approval. "And the ranch?" he asked. "Already signed over to Jess. Paperwork went through yesterday." "Evan's not going to like that." "He doesn't have to." I leaned back against the headrest. He had his chance. Chose the wrong things. Or maybe the wrong people. For a moment I saw Evan at 10 years old again, sitting on the fence rail, legs swinging, asking if calves dreamed when they slept. I wondered what he'd say if he could see himself now. Jaw tight, fists balled, married to a woman who saw the world as something to take before someone else did. Maybe he wouldn't recognize the man he became. Maybe he'd recognize him too well. We reached the outskirts of town. Mason turned off into a narrow road bordered by cottonwoods, their leaves hissing in the evening breeze. A small sign appeared, High Point Lodge. Not fancy, not trying to be. Just a low building with clean lines, each unit with its own door and a little square of porch. He parked. I didn't move at first. Leaving a life isn't like locking a door. It's more like removing a limb and trying to walk anyway. "You can still stay with me," Mason said. He wasn't pushing, just offering. "I know, but I need neutral ground." I held up the key tag. "This is neutral enough." He nodded, then got out and retrieved my bag from the back. I didn't bring much, never could figure out how to pack a life into luggage. A few clothes, the photograph of the ranch at sunrise. Robbie took when he was 16, the watch Jess gave me when I turned 60, the pocket knife my father carried until his last day. Inside, the place smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet. A bed, a small table, a chair, a window looking out toward the trees. No history, no arguments soaked into the drywall, no ghosts of cattle auctions or Thanksgiving dinners gone sideways, just space. Mason set the bag down. "You want me to stick around a while?" "I'll be fine." You say that like I believe you. I almost smiled. Go on. You've got a life of your own. He hesitated, then stuck out a hand. I took it. His grip was steady, the way fence posts are steady when the rest of the world leans. You need anything, he said. You call. I will. He left. I locked the door behind him, tested the knob. Solid. No one on the other side demanding entry. I sat on the bed and let the silence spread. My breathing slowed. My hands stopped buzzing. The world, for the first time in months, didn't feel like it was tipping. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, same as I always had. Habit isn't time-dependent, it's bone-deep. I made coffee in the little drip pot, carried the mug out to the porch, and watched the sky turn the color of bruised peaches. I thought about the ranch, the barn with its scorched boards, the fields Robbie used to run across, the sound of Jess's laughter when she was 12 and still thought her dad knew everything worth knowing. Then I thought about Evan, the boy who used to press his ear to the bellies of pregnant cows, listening for the unborn kicks, the teenager who saved up for months to buy his mother a necklace she never got to wear, the man who turned that tenderness into something sharp and hungry. People like to say time changes everything, but sometimes time just strips away the paint, shows you what was underneath all along. My phone buzzed. Jess, you all right? I typed back. I'm housed. Door locks. Coffee strong. I'll live. She replied with a thumbs up, then, he's going to call you. Or show up. Be ready. Already am. It didn't take 2 days. On the third morning, I opened the door to find Evan leaning against the hood of a rental car, hands in his pockets, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. No Kara, no phone-holding brother-in-law, just him. He didn't move when I stepped out, didn't speak either. That silence between us stretched, pulled tight like barbed wire. You found me, I said. Wasn't hard, Jess told me. She do it angry or satisfied? He let out a breath. Both. I nodded. Sounds right. He scrubbed a hand over his face. Dad, what are you doing? Living where no one tries to pry my life open like a safe deposit box. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. I met his eyes. You're asking why I walked away. But I didn't. I was pushed. He flinched like the words had weight. I didn't push you, he said quietly. You broke my nose. That was... If you say accident again, I'll walk back inside and lock the door. He closed his mouth. For a long moment we stood there, morning wind lifting the dust at our feet. He looked smaller somehow, not in size, but in certainty. Like he'd finally realized the war he was fighting had no ground worth winning. I didn't want this, he said. You wanted ownership. That's not the same thing. I just thought the ranch was supposed to stay in the family. It did, just not the branch you expected. He blinked. So that's it? You cut me out? No, I said softer. You cut yourself out. I just stopped stitching the hole closed for you. He stared at the horizon, jaw working again. I don't know how to fix this. Then stop trying to fix the land and start fixing the man. He didn't answer, but something in his posture sagged, like he finally felt the weight he'd been hauling. You hungry? I asked. He looked at me, confused. What? Coffee's still warm. I've got 2 cups. The offer hung there. He could take it or walk away. Finally, he nodded once. Okay. Inside, the room felt smaller with him in it, but not hostile, just unfamiliar. He sat stiffly at the table while I poured the coffee. Black, no sugar. Same as the mornings when he was 10, and I'd let him sip from my cup so he could feel grown. He wrapped his hands around the mug, eyes down. I don't know who I've been lately. Then you've already got the first piece. Most people don't even get that far. We didn't talk about lawsuits, or keys, or Kara. Not yet. We talked about Robbie, about Jess, about the way the ranch smelled after the first rain in May, about things we'd both forgotten we still shared. Maybe forgiveness isn't a lightning strike. Maybe it's just two people sitting at a table, hands warming the same air, deciding not to add another wound to the stack. When he finally left, the door shut soft. No slam, no threat, just possibility. I don't know how the story ends yet. Maybe there'll be more fights. Maybe he'll drift again. Maybe the land will sell one day and nobody will remember whose hands planted the first fence post. But for now, I've got a locked door, a quiet room, and a son who knocked instead of breaking in. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. The storage unit was off Highway 12, behind the old implement dealer that went under in 18. Mason had helped me move things there the week before I sold the ranch. Boxes of ledgers, old brand books, dash cams from trucks I didn't own anymore, copies of every document related to the sale, and one banker's box marked, "Trust, do not open except." I opened it now, alone, the overhead bulb flickering like it had opinions. Inside, the full trust documentation. Frank Delaney had set it up clean, all legal, all notarized. The spendthrift trust clause was on page 7, highlighted in yellow. Distributions to beneficiaries shall continue only upon demonstration of good faith familial support. Coercion, assault, or attempts at financial manipulation shall trigger immediate suspension of access pending review. Evan's name was listed, so was Jess's. But Jess hadn't hit me. Jess hadn't demanded keys at a wedding. Jess was working doubles at the fire station, saving lives, not counting my money before I was cold. I heard boots outside, saw the shadow in the gap beneath the roll-up door. "Dad, I know you're in there." Evan's voice, tight with something I couldn't name. "The problem with keeping your head down is people step on it." He came in fast, shouldered through the half-open door before I could lower it. Ryan was behind him, phone already recording. The storage unit suddenly felt very small, metal walls closing in like the inside of a shipping container. The light flickered, old bulb, motion sensor stutter, and for a second all three of us looked like ghosts caught in bad surveillance footage. "What is all this?" Evan demanded, eyes scanning the stacks of boxes, the binders, the crates marked in my handwriting. The whole place smelled like dust and old diesel, and the faint, stubborn tang of leather that had soaked up decades of sweat and sun. "Documents," I said. "From the ranch?" "Some." His gaze stopped on the banker's box labeled Ledgers 1984-2003. He moved toward it with the entitled stride of a man who assumes gravity itself should part for him. I stepped between him and the box, felt my back brush the stack of brand books behind me, every cattle mark registered in the county since 1911. History in cardboard. "Move, Dad." "No." I said move. I'd heard that tone before, on playgrounds when he was 9, outside bars when he was 19, in my kitchen when he was 32, and bleeding apologies he didn't mean. He reached for me. I didn't think, I just reacted. Muscle memory from rodeo days and a few ugly bar fights. I grabbed his wrist, twisted, used his own momentum to spin him into the metal shelving. A box of old horseshoes cascaded down, clanging on concrete like church bells for the damned. Rust dust hung in the air. Ryan yelped, jumped back, phone wobbling but still trained on us. Evan came at me again, wild now, not thinking, just swinging. He threw a punch I saw coming from Tuesday. I ducked, hooked my foot behind his ankle the way my father taught me, and he went down hard, shoulder first, the air blasting out of him in a grunt. The dolly rolled between us, lazy as a cow that knew the fence was already down. I kicked it. It caught him square in the shin. He howled, clutching his leg, pain turning his face into someone I barely recognized. "You done?" I asked. He wasn't. Pride won't let a certain kind of man stay down, even when lying there is smarter, safer. He grabbed the dolly like a war hammer and tried to swing it. I caught the handle, yanked it out of his grip. The force sent him stumbling backward, palms scraping concrete. Ryan's phone slipped from his hand, clattered to the floor, screen still blinking red, recording everything. Good. Evan, stop. My voice came out low, steady, the way you talk to a spooked horse. You keep coming at me, someone's going to get hurt. And it won't be me. He stayed down this time, breathing hard, chest heaving. His face twisted into something that might have been rage or grief or both, the kind of look men get when the story in their head finally collides with the truth in front of them. You're taking everything from me, he said, voice cracking. I'm not taking anything. It was never yours to begin with. The ranch, paid for my whole life, not yours. You didn't muck stalls, mend fence, haul feed at 4 a.m. You didn't mortgage your 20s, your knees, your marriage to keep land from slipping into someone else's hands. Ryan edged toward the door, phone scooped back up, eyes wide. Man, I think we should... Shut up, Ryan, Evan snapped, not looking at him. He pushed to his feet, legs unsteady. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I pointed at the phone. You come at me again, I press charges. That recording, that's evidence. Assault, breaking and entering. Pick your crime. What I didn't say, and what he didn't understand, was that I wouldn't press charges. That wasn't the play. That was the trap they wanted, the victim card they'd flip for sympathy, headlines, maybe even a judge. No, I had a better way to end this, one that didn't require courtrooms or handcuffs. A clean break, a sealed door. Get out, I said. They left. The metal roll-up door rattled closed, sealing the dust, the ledgers, the memories behind it. Their footsteps faded. Somewhere in the distance, a truck downshifted, the sound echoing through the storage complex like a warning. I sat on a box of ledgers and waited for my hands to stop shaking. It took longer this time. Adrenaline has a way of aging a man twice in 10 minutes. My phone buzzed. Jess. Dad, do not go home. I stared at the message. Just 7 words. But they hit harder than Evan's punch ever could. When a paramedic says, don't, she means it. Jess didn't traffic in panic. She saw emergencies carved open on gurneys every day, and she understood the difference between danger and inconvenience. If she said stay away, the wolves were already pacing my porch. I texted back, what happened? 3 dots pulsed, stopped, pulsed again. Finally, cops are there. Kara called them, said you threatened her, said you're unstable. They're looking for you. I closed my eyes, exhaled slow. Of course. Trap didn't spring the way they wanted, so they built a new one, another buzz. Jess again, do not go there. I'm handling what I can. Mason's on the way to you. Stay put. I typed back, I'm fine. She responded, that's not what I asked. I put the phone down and looked around the unit. Boxes of tax records, brand registrations, deeds, photos of the ranch before the drought years, the paper skeleton of a life I had already started leaving behind. Outside, footsteps again, different stride this time, measured, confident, someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. A knock on the metal door. Callahan, Mason's voice said. Open up, we need to move. Not run, not hide, move. That meant the board just changed shape again. I stood, wiped the dust from my palms. The shaking had stopped. I wasn't done yet, not by a mile. I got to my apartment at midnight. The door was open, hanging crooked on the hinges. Someone had used a pry bar, forced it. The lock was scratched to hell, the frame splintered. Inside was worse. Drawers pulled, clothes scattered, couch cushions slashed. My old laptop was on the floor, screen cracked. They'd gone through everything, looking for something they'd never find because the important stuff was in Unit 217, locked up tighter than their reasoning. Mrs. Chen from 3B was in the hall, arms crossed, face hard. I called the cops, she said. Didn't see who it was, but I heard boots, heavy, moving fast. How many? 2, maybe 3. They were in and out in 15 minutes. The cops came, took a report, told me what I already knew. No cameras in the hall, no witnesses who saw faces, no way to prove who'd done it. They'd been clean, or thought they had been. But they'd made one mistake. They'd taken documents. My lease, my bank statements, the letter from Frank Delaney about the trust. Things you don't take unless you're looking for ammunition. Good thing I kept copies. I spent the night at a motel off the interstate, the kind with coin-operated beds and a neon sign that buzzed. Jess showed up at 2 a.m. with bandages and coffee. "You okay?" she asked. "I've had better days." "Evan?" "Probably, can't prove it." She was quiet, rapping my knuckles where they'd split on the dolly. "The trust clause, is it real?" "Legal as Sunday." "How long before you trigger it?" "Already did. Frank's drafting the notice now." I looked at her in the ugly motel light. "You're still in good standing. This doesn't touch you." "I don't want the money, Dad. I want you safe." "I'm working on it." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I flipped it open to a photo of a riverside overpass, headlights on water, no text, just the picture. "What is it?" Jess asked. I showed her. "That's the boat ramp off County Road 8, she said. "What does it mean?" "It means midnight is when lies put on work boots." I got to the boat ramp at 11:45, parked behind the old cottonwood with my headlights off. The river was low, black as crude, moving slow. Crickets screamed in the brush. At midnight, a truck pulled up. Evan's company pickup, logo on the door, the one with the extended cab and the toolbox in the bed. But it wasn't Evan driving. It was Ryan, and he wasn't alone. A subcontractor I recognized climbed out, a guy named Dale who did drywall. They stood by the water, smoking, talking low. I couldn't hear from where I was, but I pulled out the old camcorder I'd bought at a yard sale for $30. It was grainy, ancient, but it worked. I hit record. "Scaffold's not rated for that weight," Dale was saying. "I told Evan that. He said, make it work." "He's cutting corners everywhere," Ryan said, and he sounded worried, not smug for once. "The school job? Then why are we doing it? Because Kara wants the house in Prairie Bluffs, because Evan's over-leveraged, because the whole thing's a house of cards, and one gust takes it down." I zoomed in, kept rolling. They talked for another 5 minutes, detailing every shortcut, every code violation, every lie Evan had told to keep the contracts rolling. Then headlights swept the bank. I ducked, but my phone slipped from my pocket, skittered down the gravel toward the water. "Who's there?" Dale called. I stayed frozen, heart slamming. The phone screen glowed by the water's edge. Ryan walked toward it, bent down, picked it up. "It's locked," he said. "Whose is it?" I couldn't let them keep it, but the camcorder was still rolling, tucked in my jacket. That was the evidence. The phone was just bait. I stood up, walked out of the shadows like I'd just arrived. "That's mine," dropped it getting out of the truck. They stared at me. Dale's cigarette glowed red in the dark. "Mr. Calhoun," Ryan said, and he sounded like a kid caught cheating. "What are you doing here?" "Fishing. You?" "Just talking." "About scaffolds? At midnight?" I held out my hand. "My phone, please." He gave it to me, face pale. Dale stubbed out his cigarette, climbed into the truck. They left fast, gravel spraying, taillights disappearing up County Road 8. I waited until I couldn't hear the engine anymore, then pulled out the camcorder. The recording light was solid green. Phones are replaceable. Evidence isn't, unless you keep 2 copies. Inspector Hughes worked out of an office that smelled like burnt coffee and 30 years of budget cuts. I'd called ahead, left a message, and shown up at 8 a.m. with a manila folder and a polite smile. "Mr. Calhoun," he said, shaking my hand. He was 50-something, grey hair, tired eyes that had seen every shortcut contractors pull. "You said this was about a safety concern." "Evan Calhoun's school retrofit, Building 4 South Wing." His eyes sharpened. Your son's project? Correct, which is why I'm coming to you instead of him. I opened the folder, spread out the photos I'd printed from the camcorder. These are from earlier jobs, scaffold violations, improperly rated supports, same company, same pattern. And you have proof these are current concerns? I pulled out the camcorder, hit play. Dale's voice filled the small office. Scaffold's not rated for that weight. I told Evan that. He said make it work. Hughes listened to the whole thing, face getting harder. When it finished, he sat back, rubbed his eyes. This is your son, he said. Yep. You understand what this means? Stop work order, potential fines, maybe criminal negligence if someone gets hurt. I understand. Why are you doing this? I thought about the ranch, about drought and math that didn't work, about Kara's slap and Evan's fists and broken noses that set themselves, about living small and clean when you can't live big and proud. Because I raised him to do right, and somewhere along the way he forgot. Maybe this'll help him remember. Hughes nodded slowly. I'll schedule a site visit. Monday work? Monday's perfect. I walked out of his office into morning sun that felt like vindication and regret all mixed together. My phone buzzed, Instagram notification. Kara had posted a story, photo of me with a caption, so worried about family patriarchs struggling with basic self-care. Aging is hard, prayers appreciated. The comments were already rolling in. All sympathy and concern. They wanted optics. I brought lighting. The county fair was diesel and dust, livestock and funnel cakes. The American dream wrapped in fried dough and held together with string lights. Evan's company was a sponsor. Logo splashed on banners around the rodeo ring. Kara held court in the VIP section, Tara beside her, both wearing sunglasses that cost more than a decent saddle. I was standing by the beer garden when a drunk guy bumped me, spilled his Coors Light down my shirt. Watch it, old man, he slurred. You watch it, I said, stepping aside. He shoved me. I didn't go down, but it was close. People turned, that ripple of attention spreading like oil on water. Then Evan was there, grabbing the drunk guy, spinning him away from me. Hey, that's my dad. Back off. The crowd murmured approval. Evan the hero, protecting his old man. Ryan's phone was already up, capturing it, the concerned son, the family man. Always, they're probably queuing up. The drunk guy stumbled off. Evan turned to me, voice low. You good? Fine. Good, because we need to talk. We already talked. Not about this. He pulled me toward the bleachers, under them, where it was dark and smelled like old concrete and spilled soda. Hughes called me. Said there's a site visit Monday. You know anything about that? Should I? His hand shot out, grabbed my shirt. Did you rat me out? I reported safety violations. If you got a problem with that, sounds like you got bigger problems than me. He shoved me. I caught the support post, redirected his momentum. We both went down, tangled up in the dust and shadows. Someone shouted. Security came running. But Ryan's camera had caught it all, including Evan screaming, right into the lens. You owe me the ranch money. You owe me! The public admission I needed served up hot and stupid. Security pulled us apart. Then the siren started, not for us, an ambulance threading through the crowd. Someone had gone down near the livestock pens, heart attack maybe. The rig stopped by the beer garden. Jess jumped out, saw me, saw the blood on my shirt from where we'd hit the ground. Her face went pale. Family is who runs toward you when everyone else films. We sat in her truck, engine running, AC blasting. She cleaned the scrape on my arm with the kit she kept in the jump seat, hands steady the way they get when she's working. You can't keep doing this, she said. Doing what? Poking them, provoking them. They're going to hurt you worse next time. They're already trying. This just makes it public. She taped gauze, pulled it tight. What's the endgame, Dad? What do you actually want? I thought about that. I want them to leave me alone. I want boundaries they can't cross. I want Evan to understand that being family doesn't mean owning someone. And if he doesn't, then I want consequences that stick. She was quiet for a long time. The trust clause. When does it trigger? Frank's filing the paperwork tomorrow. Assault documented at the wedding, breaking and entering at my apartment. This. I pointed at the scrape. Pattern of coercion. It's enough. Jess, I know I'm clean, but Evan's my brother. This is going to tear him apart. He tore himself apart. I'm just holding up the mirror. My phone buzzed. Email from Lydia, the venue manager. Subject line, Incident Report, Calhoun Marshall Wedding. I opened it. 3 pages, time-stamped, documenting the keys demand, the slap, Mason's arrival, my refusal to press charges at the time. Ryan's live stream was linked as supplementary evidence. Paper cuts can bleed reputations dry. It took me 2 days to piece together what Kara really wanted. Not the apartment, not some vague emergency access. The parking. My building had controlled parking, spots assigned by lease, but guest parking operated on a lottery system for special events. Concerts, festivals, hockey games at the Civic Center 2 blocks over. Kara had figured out she could resell those passes online to influencers and out-of-towners for triple the going rate. My keys meant access to the building's parking coordinator, meant bypassing the lottery, meant more passes to scalp. It was petty. It was gross. It was perfectly, believably Kara. I found out from Mrs. Chen, who'd seen Kara in the parking lot, arguing with the coordinator about promised spots. The coordinator shut her down, threatened to call the cops. Kara had left in a rage. That was 3 days before the wedding. 3 days before she decided public humiliation might work better than asking nicely. I was sitting in my rebuilt apartment, new lock, new door frame, courtesy of Mason and his tools, when my phone rang. Mason's name on the screen. "We got a problem," he said. "What kind?" "The kind where your boy defaulted on a loan I co-signed 3 years back. Equipment loan. 10,000. Bank's calling it in, putting a lien on my truck." My blood went cold. "When?" "Letter came today. 30 days to pay, or they take it." You don't take from the man who once pulled you out alive. I spent the next week threading needles. First, an anonymous tip to the HOA about Tara's backyard event rentals. Commercial activity in a residential zone, no permits, code violations stacking up like cordwood. I didn't lie. I just forwarded the evidence already on her own Instagram. Second, an email to the Venue Association about Kara's parking pass scheme, complete with screenshots of her listings on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. Not illegal exactly, but against building policy and grounds for lease violation. Third, I paid off Mason's loan, pulled it from my annuity advance, talked to Frank Delaney about legal options. The lien got released. Mason's truck stayed his, but I made sure people knew. At the VFW breakfast, at the feed store, anywhere the old-timers gathered. Evan Calhoun defaulted on a loan his father's foreman co-signed. Mason lost his truck almost because of it. The gossip machine turned, slow and grinding and merciless. Hughes called Wednesday. "Site visit scheduled, Monday, 9 a.m. Your son's been calling me every day. He sounds nervous." "He should be." "Mr. Calhoun, if this is retaliation..." "It's not. It's public safety. You'll see Monday." I hung up, stared at my phone, watched the notifications roll in. HOA fining Tara $3,000. Building management sending Kara a cease and desist. Evan's company Facebook page flooded with questions about loan defaults and worker safety. The noose was tightening. All legal, all documented, all consequence for action, not my invention. My phone rang again. Evan's number. "No, I'm letting you die from your own choices. There's a difference. The inspection, Dad, if they shut us down, we lose everything. The house, the contracts, Then maybe you should have built to code. Dad, I'm done, Evan. You want to fix this? Start by fixing yourself. I hung up, sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the feed mill grind in the distance, feeling something that might have been peace if I squinted hard enough. Broke is quieter and meaner. Monday came in cold, the kind of morning where your breath hangs and the world feels sharp. I drove to the school site at 8:30, parked across the street, watched. Hughes pulled up at 9 on the dot. Evan met him at the entrance, already talking, already gesturing, already trying to smooth. They went inside. I waited. At 9:15, Evan came out fast, phone to his ear, yelling. Workers started emerging, moving equipment, hauling scaffolding sections toward trucks. They were trying to sanitize before Hughes saw the worst of it. I crossed the street, stayed at the fence line. Technically public access, sight line clear to the south wing where the retrofit was happening. A scaffold rolled past, 3 sections high, wheels wobbly. The worker pushing it looked nervous. Another worker climbed up, started detaching sections. The whole thing swayed. Then it tipped. I was moving before I thought. Through the gate, across the dirt. The worker at the top grabbed for the building, missed, started to fall. I caught his belt, yanked him sideways. We both hit the ground hard. The scaffold crashed beside us, metal screaming on concrete. Hughes came running. Workers shouted. Evan stood frozen, face white. "Who the hell are you?" the worker I'd grabbed asked, breathing hard. "Nobody. You okay?" Yeah, I think so." Hughes was already taking photos, talking into his phone, calling for backup. The scaffold lay twisted, safety tags clearly expired, rust visible on the joints. "Shut it down," Hughes said to Evan. "Right now. Full stop work order." Evan's face crumbled. "You can't—" "I can and I am. This is criminal negligence waiting to happen. You're lucky nobody died." My phone buzzed. Text from Ryan, white-faced in all caps. "Kara is at your apartment with a locksmith. If they can't take what's yours, they'll make you pay to defend it." I made it to the apartment in 12 minutes, parking illegal and running. The locksmith was drilling my lock, metal shavings on the floor, door propped open. Kara stood behind him, arms crossed, wearing Triumph-like perfume. "Stop," I said. The locksmith looked up, confused. "Ma'am said she's the landlord's daughter, needs emergency access." "I'm the tenant. This is my home." I pulled out my wallet, showed ID, showed my lease, both matching the address. "She lied to you." The locksmith's face went from confused to angry. He stood up, packed his drill. "I don't do domestic disputes. Figure it out yourself." He left, boots heavy on the stairs. Kara turned on me. "You can't keep us out forever. Watch me. We have rights. You have the right to leave me alone. That's it. That's the list." Neighbors had appeared in doorways, phones out. Mrs. Chen was filming. The maintenance guy stood at the end of the hall, arms crossed, watching. Kara's voice climbed. "You're a selfish, bitter old man who can't stand that his son is more successful than he ever was. Your husband just got a stop work order for criminal negligence. How's that success looking?" She stepped toward me. I didn't move. Jess appeared behind her, still in her paramedic uniform, just off shift. "You slapped him at your own wedding," Jess said, voice flat. "It's on tape, multiple angles. Keep pushing and we'll make sure everyone sees it." Kara's face went white. She looked at Jess, at me, at the neighbors filming. Then she turned and ran, heels clicking on the stairs, gone. I stood in my doorway, looking at the destroyed lock, the drill marks, the shavings on my welcome mat. "I'll get Mason," Jess said quietly. "New lock by tonight." "Thanks." She squeezed my shoulder and left. I swept up the metal shavings, called a locksmith I trusted, and waited. The internet never forgets. Families do. Frank Delaney's office smelled like leather and law books, the kind of place where consequences got written in triplicate. I signed where he pointed, watched him notarize each page. "Civil restraining order," he said, stamping the last sheet. "Based on documented assault at the wedding, attempted illegal entry at your residence, and the storage unit altercation. Kara and Evan are barred from coming within 100 yards of you, your home, or your vehicle." "How long?" "Renewable annually. But Mr. Calhoun, this is just the paperwork part. The trust suspension is the real hammer." He pulled out another document, this one thicker. "Per the spendthrift trust clause on page 7, Evan's access to any future distributions is suspended pending review. The triggering events are clearly documented: assault at the wedding, coercion regarding the ranch proceeds, the various altercations. Jess remains in good standing." "When does it take effect?" "Already has. Bank was notified this morning." My phone buzzed before Frank finished talking. Email notification. Subject: Trust distribution suspension, E. Calhoun. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. "They'll fight it," I said. "Let them. Your documentation is airtight. Lydia's venue report, Ryan's videos, the storage unit recording, witness statements from the neighbors. This isn't opinion. It's evidence." I drove home slowly, past the school site with its chain-link fence and stop-work signs, past the county fairgrounds where they were setting up for next week's livestock show, past the riverside where I'd recorded Dale talking about shortcuts and lies. Money doesn't buy happiness. It just lets you rent bullies. The twist came quiet, the way truth often does. I was in Unit 217, organizing documents for Frank, when Mason knocked. He had coffee, and that look that meant we were going to talk about uncomfortable things. "The kids ever ask about the community land trust?" he said, settling on a stack of boxes. "Jess knows it exists. Evan thinks I'm lying about being broke. But they don't know the details." "No." Mason sipped his coffee. "Maybe it's time they did." I pulled out the full trust documentation, spread it on the workbench under the flickering bulb. The ranch sale had netted $170,000 after debts. The public story, the one I'd let Evan believe, was that I'd kept it all, downsized to be cheap. The real story was different. $20,000 had gone to my annuity, providing $700 a month for life. The rest, $150,000, had gone into a community land trust managed by a board that included Mason, Frank Delaney, and 3 other locals. The land trust bought conservation easements, helped young farmers get started, provided low-interest equipment loans. The kids were listed as beneficiaries for maintenance distributions, $500 a month each, adjusted for inflation, contingent on good behavior. But they'd never see a lump sum. That money was working in the community now, growing roots. Evan had been counting on a windfall that never existed. Kara had married a man she thought was about to inherit a ranch worth. They'd built their house of cards on vapor. "When do we tell them?" Mason asked. "When they ask instead of demand. When they're ready to hear it without trying to sue." My phone rang. Evan's number. I let it go to voicemail, listened later. His voice was thick, maybe crying, maybe just tired. "Dad, meet me at the river overpass. Tonight, please, just, please." The clues had been there all along. The early trust setup, Mason's key tag, my calm in the face of their demands. You can't threaten a man with poverty when he's already chosen it. We sold the ranch. We kept the ground. The overpass at night was concrete and shadows, the river a black thread below. I parked at the boat ramp, walked up the access road with my phone in my pocket, and Mason's truck idling nearby, just in case. Evan's truck was there, engine running, headlights washing the guardrail. He was standing beside it, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd seen him since he was 12. "You came," he said. "You asked. I thought you'd blow me off. That's not who I am." I stopped 10 feet away, kept the truck between us. Old habits. "What do you want, Evan?" I want to understand. His voice cracked. The stop work order, the loan default, the trust suspension. You're destroying everything I built. No, you built it on sand. I'm just the tide. But why? Why are you doing this to me? Because you hit me. Because Kara slapped me. Because you treated me like an obstacle instead of your father. Because you forgot that love doesn't come with invoices. He moved toward me. I tensed, but he just leaned against the guardrail, staring at the water. She said you'd leave me nothing, he whispered. She was right. There's nothing to leave. But there was always something to share, if you'd asked instead of demanded. Headlights swept the overpass. Jess's truck pulling up beside mine. She got out, saw us, waited. The ranch money, Evan said. Where did it really go? Community land trust, most of it. Helping people who need it, building something that lasts. But we're your family. And you're getting exactly what the trust allows. Maintenance, not wealth. $500 a month if you behave. That's it. That's what's left after 30 years of ranching and drought and trying to leave you something better than I had. He was crying now, shoulders shaking. Mason's truck pulled up, parked blocking the exit. Then more vehicles, people from town, folks from the VFW, Mary Henderson, whose husband died in the silo. They'd heard. The gossip network had done its job. Evan saw them, saw the witnesses, saw that this moment wasn't private anymore. His face twisted. You made me a joke, he said. No, you did that yourself. I just turned on the lights. He lunged, not at me, at his truck. Fired it up, tried to reverse. But Mason was there, crowbar in hand, slammed it once into the truck bed. The crack echoed. Evan froze. That's enough, Mason said, voice calm as Sunday. You're done. The crowd murmured, not angry, just watching, weighing, deciding. Evan looked at me through the windshield, and I saw the boy he'd been before Kara, before ambition, before greed, just for a second. Then it was gone. He wasn't wrong. He was late. The next 2 weeks moved like dominoes falling in slow motion. The trust suspension notice was served formally, Frank Delaney delivering it in person with witnesses. Evan couldn't touch a penny of the maintenance distributions until he demonstrated 12 months of good behavior. No violence, no coercion, no contact violations. The stop work order stood. The school contract defaulted. Suppliers demanded COD for any future work. Evan's company bled cash like a stuck pig. The HOA fined Tara $6,500 for unpermitted commercial activity. Her neighbors started avoiding her at the mailbox. The HOA board met in emergency session and she resigned. The venue association blacklisted Kara for the parking pass scheme. Building management issued a formal lease violation notice. One more incident and she was evicted. The civil restraining order was granted, stamped, filed. Kara and Evan had to stay 100 yards away from me, my home, my vehicle. Violations meant jail time. And Mason got his lien released. I paid what Evan owed him, then stood up at the VFW breakfast and told the whole room exactly what had happened. How Evan had used him, defaulted, nearly cost him his truck. The old-timers listened with hard faces. Mason's reputation was restored. Evan's was ash. But Kara wasn't done. She scheduled a Facebook Live, promoted it like a prize fight, promised the truth about elder abuse in rural communities. Location, the gala barn, same place as the wedding. She'd rented it for the evening, probably spent money they didn't have. I got the notification, same as everyone. 7 p.m. Thursday. A family speaks out. Jess called. You seeing this? Yep. What are you going to do? Depends. You free Thursday? For you? Always. If they pick the stage, you pick the lighting again. The gala barn was packed Thursday night. Same string lights, same distressed wood, same smell of money and desperation. Kara had set up a phone on a tripod, ring light glowing. The works. Evan stood beside her, uncomfortable in a button-down, looking like a man at his own funeral. 50, 60 people filled the space. Some were there for blood, some were there for truth, most were just there. The live stream went active. Kara's face smoothed into her Instagram smile. "Thank you all for coming," she started. "We're here tonight because family is important, and sometimes family needs advocates when they can't advocate for themselves." She was painting me as the villain, the stubborn old man, the hoarder of wealth, the abuser who'd driven his own son to desperation. I walked in at the 10-minute mark. The crowd turned. Kara's smile froze. Evan went pale. "Don't stop on my account," I said, walking to the front. "This is good. Really. Very moving." "You can't be here," Kara hissed. "The restraining order says you can't come to me. Doesn't say I can't attend a public event." I looked at the crowd, at the camera. "Mind if I share some things, since we're all about truth tonight?" I pulled out my phone, connected it to the barn's projection system. Lydia, standing in the back, gave me a nod. She'd helped me set it up an hour ago. The first clip played. Kara slapping me at the wedding. The crowd gasped. Some of them had been there, but seeing it again, cold and clear, hit different. Second clip, Evan screaming, "You owe me the ranch money," at the county fair. Ryan's shaky camera, perfect audio. Third clip, the locksmith, drilling my lock while Kara lied about being authorized. Timestamped. Witnessed. Fourth, Hughes's stop work order. Photos of the faulty scaffolding. The worker I'd pulled back from falling. I didn't narrate, didn't need to. The evidence spoke clean. Kara lunged for the phone. I stepped aside. She stumbled, caught herself on a chair. The crowd murmured. "You can't," she started. "I can. It's all documented, all legal, all true." I looked at Evan. "You wanted to know where the ranch money went. It went into the community, into loans for people who needed them, into easements that'll keep this land open for your grandkids, if you ever have any. It went to good use." I pulled out my apartment keys, walked to the donation jar Lydia had set up by the door. Community Land Trust Youth Fund, written in neat letters on the side. Dropped the keys in. They clinked against the glass. Those are what she wanted. Free access to run her scheme. She can fish them out if she wants. But they don't open anything anymore. I changed the locks. Again. The crowd was silent. The live stream comments were exploding. Kara's face had gone from white to red to something purple. "We're done," I said. "You stay away from me. I'll stay away from you. The trust distributions will resume if you can behave for 12 months. If not, that's on you. But this?" I gestured at the barn, the cameras, the performance. "This ends tonight." Mason appeared at my side, hand on my shoulder. Jess was there too, and behind them, a dozen faces from town. Mary Henderson, Tom Parks, the feed mill manager, the guys from the VFW. People who'd watched me work for 30 years, raise kids, survive drought, and keep going when the ground tried to swallow me whole. They'd chosen. Tonight, they'd chosen. Outside, workers were already peeling Evan's company banner off the barn wall. It came down in strips, faded letters disappearing into a dumpster. Inside, the live stream ended with a whimper. Kara grabbed the phone, killed the feed. The crowd started filing out, talking low, eyes on me and Mason and the family I'd built from people who knew what loyalty cost. Evan stood alone by the empty stage, looking at nothing. I walked past him, didn't look back. Mason fell in beside me, then Jess. We stepped into the parking lot, into air that smelled like fall and endings, and something that might have been peace. The keys stayed in the jar. The banner stayed in the bin. Behind us, the barn went dark.